Bitcoin Hard Talk episode 86. It's Friday again. And what another wild week. I mean, every single week now. I guess this is just the world we live in. And I think it's going to accelerate faster and faster and faster. But don't worry, I've got you covered as we transition to this world of Bitcoin, AI, and central bank digital currencies. I'm going to cover everything that you need to know and that you missed. And we're going to follow the money so that you don't fall for the same trickery that everybody that listens to politicians or reads the media falls for, because they are lying to you. And today we're going to be covering this week in Bitcoin, this week in macro, this week in geopolitics, if we have not met already. My name is Simon Dixon. I spent the last 25 years of my life obsessing over the topic of in investing and money, and then from the beginning of Bitcoin. And what we do at Bitcoin Hard Talk is we have hard talk about hard money, and we follow the money and cover everything that they're not showing you by actually following the monetary flows instead. And this week, the main theme is going to be that Iran is not the one that is going to lead us into World War III. The entire world that does not watch Bitcoin Hard Talk thinks right now that the US is about to enter the war with Iran, and then it's going to be an escalation to World War III, because we follow the money. And if you are a long-term listeners, you have been watching the show. And by show, I mean movie. And by movie, I mean theater. And I'm going to explain exactly what that means in part 3 in This Week in Geopolitics. What we're going to be doing this week is we're going to have our overarching theme, which is what's been happening in Iran and whether we're going to World War III. But in each bit, we're going to be doing this week in Bitcoin, macro, and geopolitics. So in This Week in Bitcoin, I've got a few stories to cover for you. But of course, in line with the theme, we're going to be covering the Iranian crypto exchange hack that happened just this week, and the impact it had on the banking hack in Iran as well, and what the impact was, so that you can protect yourself wherever you are in the world. This week in macro, we're going to be covering the market and why the market is telling us that we're not going to World War III, and the market is not expecting the US to join the war. And I'll tell you why and what to look for. And then finally, in part 3, we'll be covering This Week in Geopolitics, where I will break it down exactly why the US, and if they do join the war with Iran, what it will be, what it will mean, and how it won't escalate to World War III while the whole world is panicking about it. I'm going to make a front row seat, and you can get ahead based upon following the money, geo-financial analysis, how it has a different story. So without further ado, let's jump straight into This Week in Bitcoin, why Iran is not going to create World War III. And we're going to start with This Week in Bitcoin, with the main theme being the Iranian crypto exchange hack that has now become a tool for war, financial weapons and mass destruction fired. Right. So meanwhile, first thing is we've been covering the stable coins, for a long time, for over a decade now, since the first one was created in 2014 on top of Bitcoin to allow people to send digital dollars. Well, now, over a decade later, in the US, the Senate has officially passed the Genius Act. And this is going to allow for crypto stable coins and a bill and a regulatory environment. It is going to change everything within the banking sector, but it is still a iteration on the debt-based Ponzi scheme, which is why we still need to protect ourselves with peaceful proof of work, i.e. Bitcoin. So what the stablecoin bill means is that now there is a regulatory environment within the US in order to issue digital dollars on top of blockchains that is slightly different from the fractional reserve banking system. Firstly, all stable coins are full reserve, but by full reserve, the main asset that they purchase is that somebody comes along and deposits some dollars. So you go off your fiat currency. How was the fiat currency? It was created at a bank through fractional reserve banking. So those dollars are still part of a debt-based Ponzi scheme, but you then take those dollars and you go for an off-ramp where you deposit those dollars at a stablecoin issuer, and that stablecoin issuer gives you a blockchain representation of those dollars. The largest one is Tether, which is approximately $150 billion that back it of assets. Once you have that issuance of a stablecoin, you move away from the banking system, which is a guilty until proven innocent system, because it's a centralized database. And so every time you borrow money from a bank, it creates a new digital dollar. And that digital dollar incurs an interest that needs to be repaid. That interest doesn't exist, which means that you have to create new debt in order to pay off the old debt, which is why the entire world is in debt right now. And that's why the government is $37 trillion in debt. It's why corporations leverage debt. It's why those that create debt get to rule the world practically, because it is backed by a proof of weapons network. Some people think it's backed by gold. It's actually backed by genocide, apartheid, death, destruction, violence. And that's why I call it a proof of weapons network. It needs war in order to perpetuate prince. And the big, beautiful bill that Trump is putting in right now is to create a bunch over $1 trillion of digital dollars, borrow it from the government side and hand it over to military industrial complex so that they can go kill people around the world. And then they can also invest in technology like Palantir so that they can build a surveillance state, and the stablecoin issuer and the Trump, the dollars that are created as a result of that roll the debt cycle over and over again. And so what happens with a stablecoin? Well, once the dollars come in, you get full reserves on that stablecoin. So you can see the stablecoin issuer will list all the assets that it's backed by. What do they do with those dollars? They buy treasuries, they buy US debt primarily. And so now you've got a mechanism for the government selling debt, and you've got a digital dollar that can be sent on a blockchain, and the stablecoin issuer gets to earn all the interest off buying that bond. And so the higher the interest rate, the more that they earn. And then what they typically do is they take that yield, that amount that is earned by borrowing it from the government, or lending it to the government rather, and then they buy Bitcoin with it. So they end up getting a free Bitcoin position at the expense of the taxpayer. That's how stablecoin issuers work in a debt-based Ponzi scheme model, which is why Trump wants one, why Elon wants one, why every single corporation, Amazon wants one, Facebook wants one. They'll all have one because they are the final rollover of the debt-based Ponzi scheme, where they would like to dump their bags of debt on you. And you can use it, in order to make payments. It's a very convenient way of doing it, because in the banking system, when the money is created in a centralized database, they have fractional reserves. And those fractional reserves mean that they don't have the money. So when, for example, Peter Thiel comes up on a space, as he did a couple of years back when I was on the space, and tells everyone, withdraw your money from Silicon Valley Bank, he gets to engineer a bank run because the money's not there. They can't pay you. And then Bill Ackman came up on the same space and lobbied the government saying, I will buy the bank for $1, of course, as long as you underwrite the whole system. So then the government comes along, or the Federal Reserve creates a new tool, a bank long-term rate or whatever it is, the new tool, and they guarantee it. And then they socialize the losses and privatize the gains, which is why Bill Ackman and Peter Thiel can come along and engineer a bank run so that they can buy the bank for $1 and you pay the bill. The inflation comes along, more wealth inequality, and then they get to create more and more digital dollars, as well as investing in companies that are going to be issuing these stable coins. They leverage the debt-based Ponzi scheme to the highest extent possible. And when the Ponzi scheme gets so bad that there is riots on the streets because people are homeless, they're wondering why they can't afford stuff, they create technology like Palantir to make sure that the technology that was beta tested in Ukraine with drones and Gaza with genocide and occupation as a service can be used on you, because Palantir now is engineering civil unrest within America, within Europe, within UK, so that you opt in, just like the Patriot Act, to more and more surveillance. And if you step out of line and use your Second Amendment right and hand up your gun, you'll end up with a drone up your ass with a social credit score and being told you better not do that. Freedom of speech doesn't really matter anymore because it didn't protect you from this system, which is why we Bitcoin. We Bitcoin because we're able to resist against the Federal Reserve debt-based Ponzi scheme. Every dollar in Bitcoin is a dollar out of the Federal Reserve System. Every dollar that you don't borrow drains the swamp from the banks. Every dollar that you held, every dollar in Bitcoin that you hold in self-custody is a boycott against BlackRock and the asset managers that are engineering these wars that have control over the deep state through their military industrial complex portfolio and bank portfolio and technical technocracy portfolio and big pharma portfolio that engineer all these different types of events. And that's what backs up the proof of weapons network. So this is a movement towards full reserve. There's still a debt-based Ponzi scheme. But you get to actually see the assets behind it transparently. Also, there's another benefit. Rather than guilty until proven innocent, it is innocent until proven guilty. Because once you take it off the platform, away from the issuer, you can send it. Now, it's not like Bitcoin where it exists in a distributed proof of work supercomputer. It exists on the database of the issuer and on the blockchain. And so they have to put code in it as per the regulations, where if you're committing crime with it or doing something they don't like, they can put it on an OFAC list. They can freeze the stable coin. It still has to comply with the same things, but also Palantir gets to do blockchain analysis and create some kind of surveillance as well around it. This is the world we're moving to. As the government's engineers civil unrest as we get to the end of the debt-based Ponzi scheme, and they try to find another market to buy that debt, and stablecoin is why Genius Act is happening right now. They can then perpetuate it around the world, but fortunately, we're entering into a multipolar world where we can resist against it, and anybody that listens to Bitcoin Hard Talk knows that you resist with hard money in self-custody. The digital version is Bitcoin. The physical version, which normally requires a custodian because it's very hard to use, spend, audit, store, is gold. And they both have different use cases, but Bitcoin is where people have been able to beat the inflation that's caused by this network. Okay, so the Genius Act means that this is happening. You should utilize it, understand what it is, and only use it for spending when you need stability. And this is going to go viral. This is going to be the new system. There is going to be, for example, Stripe's going to allow you to take payments. You'll receive those fiat currency as payment. Then you can offboard it into a stable coin. And then you can go from stablecoin and you can have a business without a bank. Beautiful. I've been waiting my whole life. I've been doing it. We've been using stable coins in our company in order to pay staff around the world. It's incredibly useful. But we don't keep our money in stable coins because that depletes your wealth. And you make sure that whatever you've got left over, you're saving in Bitcoin and you're doing that long term. And you have a simple rule. I need to earn more Bitcoin this month than the previous month. Always remember that. So Genius Act is here. The technocracy are going to take over the financial system. Banks are issuing them. And there's going to be all sorts of regulatory captures in order to say, how do we transition from this fractional reserve model to this fullback stablecoin model? What's the right mix? What's the right blend? And it also creates a speculative attack. We will watch with interest. This is the monetary reform. You can fade out one, fade out others. We'll keep going through it. But this is the foundation of the world reserve currency transitioning to blockchain-based assets. It also opens up all sorts of crazy opportunities. One such thing, before we start going through some of the other stories, is a story we've been following for a while in Bitcoin Hard Talk. The infamous Justin Sun and his new integration into the corruption of the Trump administration. And remember, when I talk about the Trump administration, I just talk about whoever's president. I used to do the same when it was Biden, Trump before that, Obama before that, whoever it is, they all work for the same people, the same system. And it is just a distraction to make you think that there's going to be change and difference. Well, clearly there isn't, because the system is too bigger. It's too big. The proof of weapons network is bigger than any one person. And in most cases, presidents and prime ministers and middle management anyway. But what is it that we talk about? Corporations are able to buy politicians. And by buying politicians and owning wealth, which is why I want you to own more Bitcoin every month than the previous month, not financial advice, but everybody that's done it for an extended time frame has beaten the system, beaten every hedge fund manager, beaten all real estate, beaten gold, beaten every asset, beaten the stock market, beaten the Federal Reserve bank notes, beaten the bond market, beaten absolutely everything, which is how you build economic wealth, economic power. So if eventually you want to play in the politics game, rather than being the idiot that thinks politicians and engaging in politics makes a difference, you realize the only way to influence politics is to actually use lobby power. Justin Sun is doing that. Let's go through a story right now. So who's Justin Sun? So Justin Sun was a blockchain entrepreneur that came from China. And I've been warning against some of the things that I think are suspicious around his ventures. He bought a really old exchange, which was launched in America. It was called Poloniex. It was before Binance. And it was the very first, like there was a few of them. There was Poloniex and Bittrex way back around 2012, 2013, 2014, that were the main crypto to crypto exchanges as stablecoins started to get traction. And he bought one of those old exchanges. It was called Poloniex. He also bought one of the largest ones in China called Huobi. He also used this. And by the way he made his wealth is that he launched a blockchain. So he launched his Tron blockchain. You know, I don't participate in it. I've never used it. You know, it's really cheap because it's more centralized. It has more attack vectors. As you know, these blockchains are not the same. There's only one Bitcoin proof of work. But anyway, he started to use it. He started to get lots of traction around putting stable coins on top of it. And essentially, he would buy his way to influence, integrate it with the exchanges. And then he bought a stable coin called TUSD. Now, I believe that stable coin was used to plug big holes in different exchanges. And he was in the class of the SBF and FTXs. You know, these are my opinions. You know, but somehow he escaped because he was able to use his, you know, vast wealth from playing these different platforms. And he seemed to have some kind of escape velocity from going down the same place that SBF went. Now, in the end, during the whole crackdown during the Biden administration, Justin Sun was investigated by the SEC. And it was all sorts of stuff that he was being sued for. But you know that when Trump administration came, he was reversing many of the operations like Operation Choke Point 2.0, which is corruption at the highest level, SEC, BlackRock, Proof of Weapons Network, Federal Reserve, to try and take down the market in order to take over the market by the traditional financial players. We covered that many times in the past. But when it transitioned to the Trump administration, he reversed all of the corrupt stuff in order to support the industry so that Trump could enrich himself with Bitcoin. He's probably tripled his net worth by playing around with meme coins, shit coins, converting it all to Bitcoin, doing Bitcoin mining, launching Bitcoin ETFs, launching stable coins that can buy Bitcoin, and doing deals in the Middle East and converting them to stable coins, getting the yield that comes from the high rates of the US debt, converting that to Bitcoin, handing it over to his son and family, whatever. He's been doing all sorts of stuff to get more Bitcoin so that he can take advantage of the end of the debt-based Ponzi scheme as it runs through. Now, what happened? Trump launched a company called World Liberty Financial, and he was selling a token. He wanted to sell about $350 million worth of this shitcoin. And in doing it, it didn't do too well, even though he had the presidency and the full backing of everything he could pull off. So Justin Sun came along. Justin said, I've got an idea. I'll put $75 million into World Liberty Financial. Okay. And so he was able to build the relationship with the Trump family. And then suddenly the SEC case goes away. Let me just pull something up here. I'm just going to check. There we go. That's what I was looking to do. Okay. Now, suddenly the SEC investigation goes away. Now, I could be reading too much into this. A lot of SEC investigations went away. This is a new regime within the SEC to be more crypto friendly. But Justin Sun's one was one of those ones where it very conveniently went away after investing $75 million into the shitcoin. With that, the coin was able to like 10x the price and sell it to Trump fans and MAGA fans and all sorts of stuff. And then eventually sold it out because of that, because of the announcement. Now, what was announced after that? The SEC case goes away. The token sale is sold out. This is being used in order to bring more Bitcoin. By the way, I've got a bit of a sore throat. I've been off this week, so I might need to make sure that I get more water. And by the end of this, my throat might be very tickly, but bear with me. I'm going to make sure the show must go on anyway. Now, suddenly, the Trump's family are now joining the advisory board of Justin Sun's new public company that is going to take Tron, the Tron Foundation or something like that, public. Now that we've got all these public companies going public in the US, excuse me, there is a company and it is called, what's it called? Dominari Holdings. Dominari Holdings is apparently connected to Tron, and this is Justin Sun's company. And it is going to base, and that company has now become the largest holder of Trump token, the meme coin. You can't make this stuff up. If this is not a shitcoin casino of collateralized debt obligations and mortgage-backed securities in the crypto era of real-world meme coin, tokenized shitcoin trickery, then this is the personification of that, using the public markets to take it public and weaponizing the administration and the presidency to dump a bunch of shit on you so that they end up with a bunch of Bitcoin, and Justin Sun is doing it at the highest level with the Trump family. Now, what happens now? Trump issues a stable coin, which is called USD1, and the Trump linked stable coin gets put on the Tron blockchain. So now you've got the Trump stable coin on the Tron blockchain in exchange for investing in the World Liberty Financial shitcoin, which now is going to take a Tron Foundation public so that it can buy some Trump meme coin, and the stable coin is issuers by doing backhand deals so that the higher the rates and the higher the debt-based Ponzi scheme goes, Trump can pull out more Bitcoin and the Trump family can pull out more Bitcoin the worse the economy gets. It is essentially the biggest, utilize the capital markets, debt capital markets, presidency, and the administration to take advantage of the fact that this is the end of the debt-based Ponzi scheme, and using the full craziness of shitcoinery in order to achieve. So now the stable coin is on the Tron blockchain, which is Justin Sun's blockchain, and Dominari Holdings is basically helping Tron go public on, excuse me, it's going to be a bit of a rough one today. Now, Dominari Holdings is helping Tron go public on the New York Stock Exchange. And guess who's going to be on the team? It is expected that on the team is Eric Trump. Eric Trump is going to be taking a leadership role at a new company called Tron Inc., according to the Financial Times. And maybe Eric will also be on there as well. Or maybe we'll see. Eric has denied that that's actually going to happen, but we'll see whether it does happen. And then what comes next? Trump's other public company, Truth Social, is now filing for issuing their own Bitcoin ETF and Ethereum ETF, while World Liberty Financial does decentralized loans through these stable coins on World Liberty Financial. And they're building the entire ecosystem. Do you think this is going to be used in order to take the next issuance of debt, back it by this stable coin, and then find through trickery and dealery, people like Tron and Justin Sun are able to weaponize this network in order to find a way of creatingly rolling over the debt? it is coming, it is happening, and the Genius Act is here. Now, as I said, this does actually genuinely provide iterative improvements to the financial system. It's not all bad. To be able to have everyone in the world, the adoption that can come from stablecoins, be able to accept a QR code, you be able to spend it, this is very disruptive to the banking system. Not only is it disruptive to the banking system, it means that the stablecoin ecosystem can really, really grow, which is one step away from integrating programmatically stablecoins to be able to buy Bitcoin and save in Bitcoin. Guess who's going to do that and who's going to manage that for you? Artificial intelligence agents. And so this is all moving in a direction of programmatically being able to use fiat currency, demonetize the banks, and then thank you, you are able to exit through the Bitcoin proof of work. This is why you need to get to grips with this and self-custody now, because it is the future of the system. Excuse me. Okay, so that's the whole story there. There were some other stories as well. Vietnam passed a law to officially recognize crypto assets. So Vietnam has historically been very, I've been over to Vietnam a few times. Way back in the day, I went and met like the people that created the Bitcoin community in Vietnam way back in like 2015 era. You know, it was pretty strict, but now we've got the recognition of it as crypto assets as well. And then the final story I want to cover on the crypto side for this week in Bitcoin was how crypto, Bitcoin, stable coins are becoming so significant. They're actually becoming a tool for some of the conflicts that we'll be covering in the geopolitical section in part 3. So the announcement that happened this week was that the Iranian crypto exchange, it's called Nobitex. I haven't used it before. I wasn't familiar with it. But Nobitex, the Iranian crypto exchange, was hacked. It was basically an Israeli-linked hacking event, and it's a group that exists within Israel, and it has claimed responsibility for a $90 million, hack of the Iranian cryptocurrency exchange. Now, who that belongs to, we shall see. But I'm starting to really think, given how we know how this world works when we follow the money and the different types of operations, this group called, what's it called? Gengensky Durandi. Maybe someone knows what that actually means. But this is basically Farsi for a predatory sparrow. So this was the mission that they created. And they said that it had basically hacked the exchange. And the day after, it claimed it had destroyed. There was not only the hack of the exchange. So this hacking group within Israel hacked the exchange. It also, the day after, hacked a bunch of the banks and said that it had destroyed data at the largest state-owned bank, which is called SIPA. Excuse me, anyone from Iran that says that I'm saying that wrong. But the SIPA bank was also hacked. This is a tool that is being used as part of the economic financial weapons of mass destruction. But this has always been the tool. Every war starts with a currency war. And when we go through the background on some of the operations that lead up to this, this is the importance of owning your own Bitcoin and self-custodying your own Bitcoin. Now, I'm starting to ask the questions. We're always told, for as long as I can remember in the Bitcoin and crypto sector, that whenever there's these major hacks of exchanges, just for example, Bybit was an exchange. I think they got hacked, the largest hacked, over $1 billion hacking for a bunch of ETH. But we're always told that it is Lazarus, the North Korean hacker group. And we're always told that it is those pesky North Korean state-sponsored terrorism. I'm wondering whether it was the Israeli groups all along. I wouldn't be surprised. if this has all along been a psyop, while these Israeli hacker groups have been benefiting from hacking all of these exchanges and blaming on the pesky North Koreans so that you can just say it was the damn communists, as they always say. We know Operation Gladio, the deceit. We know what Mossad is, and we know how these operations work. So I've got no evidence for that, but I find it interesting that this is the first time that they've claimed ownership for some of these cryptocurrency exchange hacks. And it makes me question, was it Lazarus Group or was it the Israeli hacking groups all along? Now, I also just want to help give a little bit background as well, which is slightly crypto related, slightly macro, slightly geopolitics. They're all blurring the lines as well. Before the Israeli strike on Iran that we'll be covering in part 3, in May 2025, Iran had actually agreed to explore setting up a joint bank that is connected to the international financial system. It was actually agreed. It was a signed agreement that they were actually working on. This is May 5, right before, these negotiations. What that implies to me is that there was, a genuine effort to progress. And what I'll be covering in part 3 around how I believe this is all theater. But there was already the integration of a de-sanctionized Iran beta testing into its integration into the traditional Western financial system as well. It was actually set up in Oman, and Oman is, a neighbor of Iran, and it was under the Omani infrastructure. Oman, in regards to the Middle East, is actually the only country with essentially White House approved in the Middle East to be able to do business with Iran. So Oman has been approved to circumvent sanctions, or approved by the White House to do business with Iran. There was a bank set up in order to do a joint venture in order to connect those systems with Iran. Now, if you've read Operation Gladio, that I've always covered, the CIA operations where you have strategic tension to create war, and the one that was most profitable, $8 trillion of profits for the proof of weapons network to prop up the dollar, was the strategic tension between Iran and Israel. Well, anyway, this financial system was being built. We were entering towards negotiations. I'll cover more in the geopolitical section, but you already started to see that, these connections were being made. The banking infrastructure in Oman essentially is heavily monitored. So this is an integration through Oman into the Western financial system to circumvent sanctions, but state approved by the White House. And the reporting system would be set up to basically report international monitoring authorities. This implies to me that Iran was on the way to normalization in the region at the same time as working with BRICS, because my theory has been all along that the Middle East is going to be the center of a multipolar world order between the BRICS financial system and the Western financial system, which is now controlled by BlackRock and the Proof of Weapons Network. You will be familiar with all my theories as well. But these systems are being connected, which is why it kind of builds into my theory, which I'm slowly building up to, that I'll cover more in part 2. And I've covered in previous episodes of Bitcoin Hard Talk, and I'll be covering more in part 3, why this war will not be World War III. In fact, this is the engineered solution to what I believe will be the multipolar world order, and is going to usher in what I've been covering all along. This is more evidence from following the money that these different networks are being set up. Stable coins are going to be integrated. The Middle East as a tax neutral jurisdiction, we're going to have the lifting of sanctions in a normalization process. And what we're witnessing, that I'll be covering in part 3, is the execution to that world order in an acceptable way When you follow the money, that's what it's telling me. What does it mean for you? Banking means it is centralized database. Genius Act means that you can use that for your spending money. But your job is to own more Bitcoin this month than the previous month. Your job is to boycott the central bank systems. And your job is to utilize the world's largest distributed supercomputer so you are not stuck in the middle of these geopolitical games that are subject to jurisdictions. Your job is to boycott the financial terrorists by holding it in self-custody rather than handing it over to BlackRock and other custodians and ETF providers to hold it for you. And that is all the stories that happened this week in Bitcoin and this transition that we're going through into a world of Bitcoin, AI, and CBDCs. Right. If you enjoyed that, in part 2, we're going to be doing the same, but for everything that happened this week in macro and how the markets are telling us that what we're seeing in Iran is not what the media is telling us. I'll be analyzing that from the macroeconomic perspective in part 2. And then in part 3, I'm going to be going through what is happening on the battlefield. And I'm going to go through some of the CIA covert operations that led to this so that you can follow the money, understand what this is really about, so that you don't listen to the media propaganda that is tricking you into taking different actions. Just before we go into part 2, do me a favor. If you are enjoying this, please put a comment below. If you're watching it on YouTube, we break this into 3 parts. If you'd like to watch part 2, you can watch it there. Or if you're watching the live stream, we'll go right into it as the whole video. Now, we are at 99,000 subscribers. Thank you so much for getting us there. We need 1,000 new subscribers. Can we do it this week? If you are not subscribed to this channel, as soon as I hit 100,000 subscribers, I get to have a review by YouTube, and then we can undo what has been shadow bans and all sorts of stuff, especially now that I've predicted so much and it may not be against the goals. So can you help me get to 100,000 subscribers so that we can get to the next stage? Just 1,000 to go. We can do that with this video, and hopefully next week we'll be celebrating together. I also cover this on X, so we live stream on X. And on X, I'm at 199,000 followers. Can we get another 1,000 there where I cover in real time all sorts of updates and all sorts? If I get banned from all of that because of my content, don't worry. I'm going to put it also on Rumble. Follow me over there. And in case all of that goes wrong, go to simondixon.com and create a free membership for yourself to the Bitcoin Hard Talk membership portal. I'll give you guides to the Great Depression of the 2020s, all completely free. A digital copy of my book, newsletter every week to keep you up to date. And we back up every video so you can go through the whole archives in case we get shut down of those systems. So make sure you follow all of that, do that as well. And we'll put the links below, and maybe even join me in the Telegram group in case we need some cryptic communications as well. So all of that is how to stay in touch. And we're going to move over now to part 2. I'm going to rescue my voice a little bit. While I'm doing that, please hit the like button. Please do some of that. Please put a comment below.
Okay, hi, Simon, can you hear me?